I want to talk about grief a little bit. And the way that we as human beings grieve. That's something that I want to talk about. Today I was just like, oh, we should talk about this because I wanted to have this like kind of deep conversation about grief and the different ways that different cultures grieve. And we're not super educated about a bunch of different cultures, but your mommy's husband is from Nepal. And unfortunately his father is passing or has passed away. Is in the middle of it.
He's sick right now.
Yeah, he's very sick. And what's interesting is apparently, and we're not super educated on the culture, but apparently there's a lot of protocols that you go. Protocol sounds so like weird, but there's a lot of protocols you go through in that culture when somebody passes away. So apparently you grieve for a whole year, which makes sense to me. Because, remember that one time you threw away the rest of, I forget what food it was. You threw the rest of some food away, and I'm still grieving that. It's incredible. So that was months ago.
You're so dumb. Well, so for
I wanted those chicken nuggets.
mom's husband, he is, they're Hindu, and his father is a guru, and they're like at the top
kind of like Michael Myers from The Love Guru. Yeah,
they're at the top of their caste system.
Yeah.
So I don't know like if that impacts it, but basically my mom was just like saying, because as we said, like his father is not well right now, so they're kind of just like dropping everything, and he is going over to Nepal for the next month.
Yeah.
So month. We have a lot of family things coming up, so my mom was kind of just giving us a heads up of like, hey, like, this is what's happening. Like, I don't know what exactly, like, when his father does eventually pass away, like, what's going, like, to happen, like, how, like, what he's following of the grieving process and the stuff like that.
Yeah, and part of it's like you can't eat certain foods. Like your mom said, like they can't eat. He's not supposed to eat onions or something for a year.
She's not really sure. She said that like obviously right now like it's a sensitive time, so she's not like badgering him with questions.
Yeah.
But like obviously to support him, she's like, when he comes back, I'm just gonna be like, all right, like what do you need to do and how do we need to respect it?
Yeah, which I respect because we already can't eat beef around him.
Yeah.
But no, I understand it. It's just fine. But then also you're not allowed to do celebrations for a year, maybe. Like so that might be part of it. Again, we're a little uneducated. But overall what I found interesting is like the way different cultures grieve. Like for us, obviously we have like a wake. And then, like, that's our general process. Like, you have a wake, which is, I think, very normal in the United States, at least.
Well, I was just going to say, it actually differs with where you live at.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, though. Like, it differs a little bit. Like, you usually have a wake. It's usually a couple of days, and afterwards, you'll bring the I almost said the baby. That would be horrible.
Damn.
I'm sorry. Jesus. I wasn't even thinking of it like that. I'm like, you just bring your baby home. But no, you're not bringing your baby home. That's horrible. Jesus.
Damn, baby.
That's horrible. That's terrible stuff. It's not even funny. It's terrible. Anyway, you bring the funeral casket. You bring your dad or whatever. You bring him and you bury him, right? And all these are just different things. And my question, I guess, is why? Because if you look at these things from an individual cultural or religious perspective, they make a lot of sense. But for me, as much as I love the concept of something, God or something that I want to believe in, and it's going to make you say it again, but it's because I need to believe that we are going to be together after this, right? When we pass, we have to be together regardless. Like it doesn't matter if we go to heaven or if we are going to be reincarnated and we're going to find each other again. Like we used to be dinosaurs together probably, right? That's what I need to believe. So I understand that. But if you look at it not from a specific religious perspective, that gives you like a lot of like, oh, this is what happens, or at least you think it does.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be true, but and you look at it from more of like a historical perspective of like, why do we have these rituals? And that's kind of what I want to kind of talk about. Like, why do we have these rituals? Or like in Hispanic, right? And like we watched Coco. I'm hoping that they didn't make all of it up. I'm assuming that it has cultural relevance where like they put pictures on the walls and so that you remember family members forever. It seems like there's some kind of preservation of a person forever. You put them in the ground with a headstone. You put a picture on the wall. Make sure you honor your family. It's all about remembering the individual and that person. And I wonder if that's what it all centralizes around, is just remembering the person who's passed, and this deep fear within us all of being forgotten in some capacity and not knowing how to not get forgotten. You know, like maybe it does make sense that you maintain yourself in some form as long as people remember who you are, you know? And like it's just that is interesting to me. What do you think about that?
Was there a question in
No,
there?
it was just me phrasing. Well, I guess the question is, why do you think that we have all these different rituals in different, like, based on the religions? Is really what my question is. Like in like Viking religion, and you die, you go to like Valhalla forever, and you fight.
I guess it's like to honor.
Do you think that it's more about other people honoring the person, or do you think it's about that person needing to cope with the idea of not existing anymore? Or a mixture between the two?
I mean, the way that you're saying it is sounding very like focused on yourself.
I'm trying to do focuses on both. And then it even gets into the concept of self-chastising and almost OCD rituals, which I feel like some religion has some reaches into, like say 6 Hail Marys, just in the same way that I have to make sure that the doors are locked 6 times every night. It's always 5 plus 1, right? That's like a big one. It's been 8 sometimes and 12 other times. I don't know why those numbers. But like, why these rituals? Like, I know this sounds weird, and this might be just the way my brain operates, because sometimes, like, you know, sometimes I kiss you like 100 times, not on the nose, but I will kiss you until I feel like everything's okay. Because if I don't, it's like a compulsive thing. It's probably like an OCD behavior, right? Like literally one.
100%.
Yeah, it's a non-diagnosed OCD. I'm a fucking neurodivergent minor. But I don't. I'm not a child. I just yearn for the minds. No, but and part of me is like, well, are those rituals potentially rooted in somebody who is very religiously impactful, like creating that ritual? Does that sound weird?
No.
And then it gets into this idea.
Now I'm just sorry. Go ahead.
Then it gets into this idea where sometimes I feel like if I don't do a thing, a bad thing will happen. Like when we went to the park today, I was started to read like the entirety of what the headstone said, because if I didn't read the whole thing, then the person who was in honor of would be forgotten and die. That's sometimes how my brain works. And so I'm wondering, you have to do the funeral and you have to do the wake, or you have to do this ritual or that ritual, because if we don't do this ritual, this person's going to die and they're not going to be together. We have to make sure we do the right thing. We have to almost force ourselves to honor this person, where like part of it is emotional grieving, but part of it is like this ritualistic idea of not wanting to terminate this person's soul for not complying to some kind of a somewhat inconvenient ritual. And that's where my fucking brain goes to. I know that's a lot. That's where my brain goes to.
I love you.
Yeah.
Respectfully. That's like, you know, like when we talk about like, I don't know if we've ever talked about it on stream, but you know, we talk about like all of these symptoms that are going around and people can identify with them, and they're like, oh, so I have this diagnosis or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always say is like, everybody has like these symptoms, but when we look at it like an actual diagnosis and treatment, we're looking at like those symptoms and them impacting
and those being
your
like
life.
Significant symptoms, where like some people are like, oh, I have ADHD because sometimes I forget things and can't pay attention. Whereas like that's a significant thing, where just now while you were talking, I focused in such a weird way that I wasn't listening to what you said for like 3 seconds, and then I had to get myself back into it. Like it has a negative impact on me sometimes. I have to do that regularly.
Yeah, so basically my social work hat was kind of just on the whole time you were talking, because yeah, it seems like you have definitely like some compulsions.
Do I like what? What do you?
No, but the way that you described, like the question is like what I would ask someone if we were looking at their obsessions or compulsions would be like, well, what would happen if you didn't do that action?
I told you before with the headstone, the guy's gonna.
No, I understand. You know. So I'm saying like that's like you just did that.
This. Like, what are you talking
about?
No.
Oh,
okay. I thought because I was just
you answered that question.
Yeah, no. Like, I'll have like if I don't check the doors enough times, I feel like the door will be unlocked and somebody's gonna break in. Or if I kiss you too many times, the way that or if I don't kiss you enough times, something bad will happen to you. And so the way that I rationalize it is like, okay, if I give her 5 more kisses, then she might be just a little bit later to work to avoid like getting hit by a car.
I love you.
Does that make sense? It's
Yes.
fucking. It can be a little distressing sometimes. But like, here's my thing. But it makes sense in a religious context because how many people with obsessive compulsive behaviors need to exist that in the church to make it so that everybody.
You have to say it 6 times.
Say it 6 times. Say Hail Mary. I said it. No, it's 6.
You have to say it 6.
It has to be 6 times or you're going to fucking go to hell. All it takes is me, like, running the church. You know? That's all it took. It's like 1,000 years ago. It's like, hey, we said our Hail Marys and we said our Our Father. I said this. You got to say it again. Why? Say no 6 times. Why? 6? Because I'm the fucking bishop. 6 times. You don't even. God told me you have to say it 6 times. Right? That's all it takes. God. I was talking to God. It was a burning bush. God turned into a fire bush, and he was talking to me. That's what it is. I mean, no, not to be invalidating of religion, but how many people with mental health issues were the leaders of religion? Somebody screaming that they're Jesus Christ, the Son of God. I mean, you know, God forbid. What does it mean? You know, like, what is that? Was that real? Because nowadays, those are people who are getting choked to death on fucking subways.
This conversation went like a very different direction than what I thought it was going to be.
Sorry, I didn't know where you thought it was going to go.
Well, so the way that this conversation came up earlier is we were driving and we drove past a cemetery.
Yeah.
And so I thought that we were going to actually talk about the grieving process, and I was ready to talk about like things like clinically.
Talk about it.
And stuff like that.
But one thing before you do, one of the things that really spurred this conversation for me that like put like 4 different pieces together is I saw this documentary on TikTok. It's not of TikTok. You know how these things work. And it was about these termites, and I think they're in Africa, and they have like hundreds of miles, or there's huge underground caverns, and they've been around for like millions of years. Apparently, they've been just so efficient and effective, and they have these queens that live for 15 years, and those queens just lay like 30,000 eggs a day, and then when they are no longer useful, they get eaten by the workers, and it's like. I was like, how horrible. Like, you know, where's the appreciation for fulfilling 15 years of just pumping out babies, right? And I got very human emotion, and I was like, well, I'm a human and they're termites. But I'm like, but then it kind of makes sense because they're recycling organic matter, right? And then I'm like, applying that to our society, and it's like, well, would it be better if we got rid of graveyards and we just made housing instead? Like, are we being too emotional and not pragmatic enough, and like to the detriment of society, where some of the like our rituals are potentially having a negative impact on us at this point? That's how all those pieces came together to make me go like, wow, grief is an interesting thing because there's no real logical reason to have a graveyard full of a bunch of dead bodies other than for us to honor this idea of ourselves hopefully living forever in some capacity. That's where my brain went.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't think of any grieving process, or I've never like considered that aspect.
Which aspect?
Of self-preservation, I guess.
Okay.
I've always thought about it just like the loss of that person.
So you thought about it from
missing
the people,
their presence.
The people missing the person, not the person wanting some form of immortality.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that
You don't think it's both? I think it's both.
I don't. I don't think I've ever interpreted it that way. Not the grieving process.
Yeah.
I think a part of death is thinking about like yourself and what it means for your own life. But like the actual like grieving and things set in place for grieving. Mm-hmm. And like when it comes to cemeteries, like I have like 2 personal thoughts on them.
Okay, they're spooky. That's thought number 1.
Well, the first one I don't want to be buried because I don't want to be fucking buried. I don't want fucking bugs crawling up my asshole and out my eyeball. Like,
what do you want to do with your body? You want to be cremated?
What?
What do you want then? Cremation?
Yeah.
Interesting. But what if like you are your body getting cremated, you know?
No, when you die, like that's not you.
Okay. Whatever you're gonna do,
that's your home.
I think whatever you do, your body's your home. Oh, and you leave your home. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think whatever you do, I'll do. Yeah, I hope that it works out well.
Well, we have to talk to your mom because
she got.
you have a plot with your mommy.
I think one of the things we said was that like I was gonna be buried next to my mom with your urn in my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
how about I'll die first, and then
I don't want to talk about.
They'll cremate me, but then like one of those Salem witch fires, and you just jump onto it and you just burn alive with me.
Oh, if you die first, goodbye.
When she said, I'm gonna pass first.
I said if.
You said when. It's okay.
I don't, baby. I'm going to literally just.
Okay, I'm sorry. I
cannot. I'll cry right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I love you.
Anyways,
I'm sorry.
Graveyards.
Yes.
First of all, for me personally,
why did they call them grave feet?
I don't like the idea of grave like inches. I mean like I'm not a very. I don't know. My relationship with death and grieving has changed since I've gotten married. So
who did you marry?
So like right now, like my dad's in the living room. He's sitting on the shelf.
I swear to God, that guy's fucking with me when you're gone. Sometimes I
don't even want to talk about that.
He's been fine, so he can hang out. I guess.
No.
Oh, stop! You think he watches us fuck?
That's disgusting. But that fucking freaks
me
out.
If you were my daughter, I'd watch you fuck. You're hot. I'm just
kidding.
I'm just fucking kidding.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. I love you.
But so yeah, my dad's ashes are in the living room.
Sorry.
And like I don't feel like a connection to it, more of a guilt that like I'm supposed to carry it around.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't like. I used to take a picture with his urn every year on Father's Day and put it on my Snapchat story.
Right, but that's what I'm talking about before. The ritual part of it being to honor that person because you feel like you should be honoring them. Remember I mentioned something like that before? Like that's kind of what I'm speaking to.
Yeah, but do I feel that way because like of my complicated relationship with my father?
I don't know. Or because there's like a societal expectation, maybe.
So like his ashes are in there, and the thing that I feel like I'd rather have my father's ashes that could move with me, rather than say like we move to Florida one day.
When we pass, do you want to have our ashes pushed into like a stone together? That'd be cool. You want to do that?
Yeah,
that'd be a cute idea. Then like our granddaughters can have earrings. Is that a nice idea?
No, I think that we should we get pressed into a stone and then thrown into the ocean.
Oceans are scary, but if that's what you want to do,
because then it's in the bottom of the ocean and it's just there.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we give it to like our grandkids or something. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see what we're gonna do there.
So, but anyways. What I don't like about cemeteries is that the person is buried there and they stay there. So, like, you as the living one are like bound to that place.
Do they stay there though? Like, I mean, we mentioned this before about staying there, and I think I had offhanded said like, oh, I feel like they just exhume the bodies and get rid of them every year, and you're like, they probably don't do that.
But in my lifetime,
but we just started doing that, kind of, you know.
Well, no, I don't know.
Like, I feel like at some point they're going to start digging out bodies and going like, okay, throw that in the river and then put a new body in here.
Maybe, but all right, I want to just get this split out. Sorry. Like, so I don't like that basically they're stationary, and it's like if they're buried there, it's like you don't have them like with you.
Yeah, you got to go hang out with them.
But other people, I've learned that other people also like the cemetery because that's where they grieve. They don't take that grieving with them. That's like their grieving
so
place.
Interesting. I know this sounds so stupid, but we were just talking about when we have kids, we're going to have like a homework area. No, I know it sounds so silly, but we're going to have a homework area because you associate doing your homework in the homework area. And if you have a place that you sit, if you do homework where you play video games, for instance, you're going to sit down and go, oh, it's video game time. Because you're in video game area. And so it's like to have a homework area because you sit down, it's like, oh, it's time for me to do this. Like that. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. It's like an intentional disconnection from it so that it doesn't like sit with you and then you go there to grieve and you leave your grief there.
Yeah. So I think I'm at a point in my life now where like I understand that more. I used to like not like that because I thought of that you had to go there to feel those feelings, and that I would want to be able to feel those feelings wherever I wanted.
Interesting.
But I like at the same time, like I still feel that like that guilt thing. Like it's easier for me to have the guilt that I have to bring my father's urn around with me, rather than the feeling of like if we moved to Florida, I would feel bad basically like leaving him on Long Island.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.